Hello, hello. Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. You can hear us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on WBAI. That's 99.5 FM or FwdRad.io. We also do a show in front of an audience once a month at the Brooklyn Commons at 388 Atlantic Avenue between Hoyt and Bond. Our next one is July 6th, 8 p.m., and doors will open at 7:30 p.m. And our special guest will be none other than Carl Digler, a.k.a. The Dig, chief political columnist at Cafe.com, Beltway insider for 30 years, father, host of the Digcast. You may know the Dig from his website 638, which is where you can find honest and accurate political forecasting driven by gut instinct and racial science. Or you may also know him as being the alter ego of Felix Biederman of the Chapo Trap House podcast. Catch up on all our old episodes at SoundCloud and iTunes. Follow us, rate us, give us some reviews, give us some stars, give us some love. See you next Wednesday, July 6th, on the radio at 6 p.m. and then live in person at 8 p.m. Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. If it's Wednesday, and it's between 6 and 7, sometime between those 2 hours.
That golden window of time.
That golden window of time and opportunity. You will hear on WBAI, on 99.5 FM, or WBAI.org, or later when you're on SoundCloud or iTunes, you will hear the Katie Halper Show. And I'm your host, Katie Halper. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host.
What's up, everybody? It's me. It's Gabe Pacheco. I got a belly full of gazpacho, and I'm ready to go.
A belly full of gazpacho. Gazpacho Gabe.
That's right. It's like a salty smoothie.
Ooh, I like it.
Soup.
Like a savory smoothie.
It's like a savory smoothie.
I love gazpacho.
It's the right time of the year to have one,
It
you know?
is.
We're just a couple days away from July, and it's hot.
No need to wait till
No
July.
need to wait.
It's not an etiquette. It's not like you can't, drink gazpacho before July, is it? Is there like a Labor Day white pants?
Yeah, there.
rule?
If there isn't a rule, there should be a rule.
There should be, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Because
we
I'm
can
all
start
about
that.
I'm all about making rules and then breaking
rules. Boom. Let's do a little fist bump. Too bad. We're going to get video in here soon. You could have seen that. We're going to talk to Rania Khalek. We're so excited to talk to Rania.
Love
Do you remember
Rania Khalek.
She did one of our... I don't know if I want to call it studio audience. That implies there's a studio. But she did one of our shows in front of an audience that we do at the Brooklyn Commons at 388 Atlantic Avenue.
Yes.
We are doing one next Wednesday, but it's always free, and it's at 7:30 at 388 Atlantic at the Brooklyn Commons. Rania did our show last month with the Trap House boys. That was really fun. She's a journalist at the Electronic Intifada. She's written all over at Vice, at Nation. Rania, you're here. Rania, welcome.
I am there. What's
Hi.
up?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay, Rania, for reals though, thank you
Yes.
for coming.
Yeah.
You have been writing a lot, and you really have your teeth sunk. Do you say that? Your teeth sunken into?
She's definitely gnawing on
She's
a topic.
Biting. She's biting a topic, yeah, which is the Democrat.
I've left nothing. There's no meat left on it. It's just bone at this
it's
point.
bone.
I've
It's
not on
pure
it so
bone.
much.
Yeah, there's
like a
nothing.
pit bull. Like you're a
Rania
journalistic.
is a pit bull for the truth.
Yeah.
No, keep going, Gabe.
I am
Gabe got
fierce.
upset.
I like
because
to think I'm fierce.
No, Gabe.
I did. I got so shook and upset because I was in the middle of calling you a pit bull with your jaw locked on a juicy topic, and then Katie swooped in and stepped on it. But you know what? We're getting over it.
With my pit bull, what's it called? Hoof? What do dogs have?
They have-
Claw?
Pause.
Pause. Thank you. Reggie is shaking his head in disgust. I'm going to pretend it's an amusement because, okay, so Rania, you've been writing a lot about the Democratic Platform Committee. And for folks who don't know, what's going on right now is that the DNC is basically banging out its platform. And the process began in St. Louis last Friday. It's only 1/3 complete. Next stop is Orlando and then Philly. And 5 delegates were named by Sanders to draft the platform. And the Clinton campaign named 6 members. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, excuse me, the chair of the DNC, added 4 more. Of course, that means that Clinton added 4 more, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Essentially.
And just to give some bios of who's on this committee, just to give you guys a sense, the drafting committee chair is U.S. Rep. Elijah Cummings. The members include Carol Browner, who's the former EPA administrator, U.S. Rep. Keith Ellison, who's a Democrat from Minnesota, U.S. Rep. Luis Gutierrez from Illinois, who's a Democrat. Barbara Lee, the Democrat from California. She's awesome. Then we also have Bill McKibben, the author and environmentalist. Bonnie Schaefer, who is a business owner. Ambassador Wendy Sherman. And Neera Tanden, our good friend from the Center for American Progress. Dr. Cornel West, our good friend for real. And James Zogby, the founder of the Arab American Institute.
So I've been writing a lot about it from the Israel-Palestine angle, but I've also been watching the hearings, and they have been incredibly amusing and somewhat entertaining in a political theater sort of way, because what you have is you have 5 Sanders appointees that you just described who are all, they're not necessarily, some of them are establishment people, I guess you could say, because they're Congress people, but at the same time, they're all involved and they're all somehow connected to grassroots in some way. They all kind of come out of grassroots organizing. And then you've got Clinton and DNC appointees who are a mix. There's a couple who are decent, like Barbara Lee, but then it's mostly elite Democrats and corporate lobbyists like Wendy Sherman, who's a lobbyist for Madeleine Albright's consulting firm, that basically uses, its influence to help its corporate clients get connections to various foreign regimes to push whatever legislation or policies they want. So really great work that they do.
Right.
And also the Carol Browner is also another one who works with that same actual lobbying group, with Madeleine Albright's group as well. So yeah, you've got 2 sides that come from that are very, very different ideologically and even in their sort of day-to-day jobs, going at it on really important policy issues. And so watching these hearings has been interesting just because you see them butting heads over, one side is just super corporate and super willing to
ruin the planet.
Sell out on basically really important things on the platform, yeah.
And the
planet. And then you've got the other side made up of people like Bill McKibben, the environmental activist, urging them on climate change, and then they won't even pass a carbon tax. They kept defeating all these really important measures.
In fact, were actually
kind of shocking to watch.
Well, I've gathered some, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the...
I like that.
That's good, right? Of the platform committee. So the good is that there was a unanimous vote against the death penalty.
So that was one of the things where the Clinton people actually tried to defeat it, but they actually didn't have the numbers. They didn't have the numbers. Because, Hillary Clinton is for the death penalty. She says she's for the death penalty because of terrorism or something.
Right, and just federal cases is her line, yeah.
Right. So, what you could tell was happening was that the Clinton people were trying to sabotage anything from becoming more progressive that Hillary Clinton was openly against.
Right.
And so they tried to come out against that, but they didn't have the numbers. So Elijah Cummings, even though there were more people, even though a majority voted to oppose the death penalty in the platform, he tabled that issue, and then the Sanders people raised such a stink about it that they were forced and shamed on social media into eventually passing it, because so many people were watching. It was at the beginning of the 9-hour-long 9-hour-long hearing.
Right. It's just the death penalty. It's I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. It's life and death. It's racist. It kills innocent people. It's also just barbaric in principle. Gabe's getting... Yeah, so that was the good. So we have the good is the vote against the death penalty. We have the bad, which are the amendments against the Trans-Pacific... which is the amendments against the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade agreement, the amendment for $15 minimum wage, and the backing of Medicare for all. All of these great things failed, with Clinton delegates voting against them. And then the ugly, if you will, of the good, the bad, the ugly. The ugly is the particular unwillingness, and you refer to this, Rania, to change around climate issues. So they voted against the carbon tax 7-6. They voted down a ban on fracking 7-6. They 7-6 voted against effort to keep fossil fuels in the ground, at least on federal land. And they voted down a measure to mandate that federal agencies weigh the climate impact of their decisions. And they voted against a plan to keep fossil fuel companies from taking private land by eminent domain. So great stuff. But at the end of the day, they reached a unanimous consent on more bike paths. So that's great for all the people who live in all you hipsters out there. You won. This is your day. You wrote a great piece in Electronic Intifada. Democrats try to bury Palestine in the middle of the night. We have some sound clips that we want to play. We hear a little discussion between James Zogby who is one of Bernie Sanders' appointees. And James Zogby is, Zogby, like the polling? That is James Zogby of the polling industry.
That's
him. And he's also been involved in the DNC, and he also is at the Arab American Institute. He's just an all-around really smart dude. One of his issues is trying to have Palestinians have human rights, but that's not his only issue.
Right.
We get a great exchange between him and Bonnie Schaefer.
The DNC appointee.
Oh,
she's former co-CEO of Claire's stores, the preteen jewelry store, which is a clear qualification
for the
Democratic platform.
That's actually, I like Claire's. Hey, Bonnie,
it's great.
If you're listening, mail me in some
dangling
earrings.
It's confusing that she's on the platform committee, but sure, okay.
Okay, so yeah, I know it's not the best qualification, but whatever. So we're going to play that clip. Reggie, you got it? Okay.
The term occupation shouldn't be controversial. George Bush said that there was occupation. Ariel Sharon said there was an occupation. Barack Obama has said there was an occupation. There is an occupation. It denies people freedom.
And Bonnie Schaefer.
As a gay Jew, Zionist, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, as we all know. The only place in the Middle East that I can walk down the street with my wife, hand in hand, and not be afraid.
You can go and walk down the street of Tel Aviv holding the hand of your wife. I can't get in the airport without 7 hours of harassment because I'm of Arab descent. I'm not even Palestinian. I'm Lebanese American. The treatment of people of Arab descent, just going there, is discriminatory. The people who live there suffer horrific discrimination. We have to be able to call it what it is. It's an occupation that humiliates people, that breeds contempt, that breeds anger and despair and hopelessness, that leads to violence. In 1988, when we called for mutual recognition, we could not get that done. We couldn't even get the word Palestinians in the platform. We're asking to move beyond this now. Reality has moved way beyond just recognizing they're there. It's hearing their voices, understanding their pain, saying that our Democratic Party understands that this is a conflict that must be resolved by respecting the rights of both peoples. I thank you.
So, Rania, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that are that is not a conversation that you ever hear happening at a table like that,
right,
in a public forum, even though it was in the middle of the night.
Right.
And that's what's striking about that, is that these are Democrats. This is something that, those are the kinds of statements that only get said to high-level Democrats at protests. Like, you don't hear that in places of power. And so I think that right there is just like a significant demonstration of how that things, like, of how momentum on this issue is moving at a dramatic pace. Like, it's inched its way up to the top. I mean, it's come from the bottom, but it's inched its way up to the top, so that you've got someone like Zogby who's able to say that at a table of high-level Democrats in a public forum where people are watching.
My favorite part of that exchange is Bonnie Schaefer's very woke, intersectional, and respectful of human rights statement about how she can, as a lesbian Jewish Zionist, she can walk down the streets, and those are her words, gay Jewish Zionist. She can walk down the streets holding the hand of her wife and feel safe in Israel. It's the only place in the Middle East she can do that. And what I love about that is it shows such a head up your own rear-endedness that is kind of admirable, kind of scary. She's talking to people about the Israeli occupation, and her pitch is basically it's LGBT friendly for Jews. It's not friendly at all for Palestinians or Arabs or people of Arab descent, as Zogby pointed out. It was kind of amazing to hear him be like, that's wonderful. And he's not a homophobe. I'm sure he's appreciative that this woman has the freedom to walk with her wife. But that's great. You get to do that as a Jew. You get to hold hands with your wife. I can't even get through the airport without.
Can a gay Arab hold hands in Tel Aviv?
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I'll tell you this, is that, there's a couple things about what she did say, and that is, one, that's a common, like, pro-Israel talking point. It's something that's called, we call it pinkwashing, which is basically trying to present Israel as this haven for LGBT people, So like, just don't pay attention to the occupation because it's good for gays. And the problem with that is that not only, like you mentioned, okay, like what about gay Arabs, because they exist too, is actually what Israel does to LGBT Palestinians, is they blackmail them on the occupied territories. They blackmail them into being informants, or else they will out them. That is something that happens. It's very, very common. And so, not only are we talking about Palestinians with no rights, but we're talking about, LGBT Palestinians are actually extremely vulnerable because of Israel and its conduct.
I did not know that.
That sounds like Hoover era FBI tactics.
Yeah.
I like that's very clever.
That's
a very insidious way of getting snitches on your team. Just find the gays and be like, sorry, we're going to out you guys. We're going to take you out of your closets if you don't snitch.
Right.
On the Hamas guys.
It is funny because, I had no idea about that. I knew about the pinkwashing. I didn't know that term, but I know that it's often invoked as a talking point. Like, you know what, guys? Guess what? You want to go out to a gay bar? Have a fabulous time? Come to Israel. Can you say that about...
Now, it's interesting that it's mutually exclusive with the way that they're cleaving the issues into saying that, well, the only way that we can have this LGBTQ utopia is if we have a colonial and fascist arrangement with the Arabs, the Mohammedans that are on the other side of the bank.
You know what they say? Behind every great gay nightlife scene is the oppression and colonization of another people. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But
it's actually funny. It's like, let's be gay and eat vegan food, and it's only possible because Palestinians are under occupation. Like that's like the message Israel often tries to send. It's funny.
Let's go to a nightclub, and then the floor that we dance on will be the backs of Palestinians who will be lying on the floor. They will be our.
It's environmentally friendly that way.
Yeah, exactly.
I like this idea of like an imperial pride parade.
Yeah, me too. Where they're carried, like with Israelis, they're just carried on what are those things that kings and queens use? Like what are the things?
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. It's like a stretcher, but royalty.
Yes.
Yeah, Anyway, but
chariot?
Kind of like a human-made chariot, a chariot made of Palestinians as the wheels.
Yeah, totally.
It's a good image, right? But it is kind of absurd that, like, how self-absorbed you have to be to think that your own ability to hold someone's hand, which is true. I mean, that's a good thing and that's a right. But like that you say that and you're kind of discounting the lack of much more basic civil rights and human rights that Palestinians are having. And you say it to a man who's an Arab American who's talking about the plight of Palestinians.
It's striking. I don't know. Like, I can't tell you what's going on in Bonnie Schaefer's head. Maybe she doesn't know very many Palestinians, and maybe she has no idea about the treatment of Arabs when they go to the airport. I have no idea, but what I do notice is that with people that I have like argued with, and I kind of have a better understanding of what's going on in their minds when they say those kinds of things, is they genuinely believe that like they need Israel. They need Israel to be an exclusivist, like Jewish majority state. And in order for Israel to be a Jewish majority state, it has to deny rights to the vast millions of people who live in its vicinity that aren't Jewish, and it has to commit really aggressive acts of violence. If you just demographic-wise, if you want to be if you want to dominate a demographic like that, you have to commit acts of violence, and so that's how it's justified, is like we have to have the state because Jews have been persecuted for so long. And it's just really striking when it comes from people like Bonnie Schaefer, because, she's like a multimillionaire who's got probably several homes in America, which is great for her,
She
has like a very successful company, but at the same time, there are refugees who have no homes.
Right.
And you're saying they can't have any, they still can't go back to their homes because you need an extra one? Like, that doesn't seem very fair.
Come for the gay pride parades. Stay for the housing demolition. Israel, I just gave that to you. You're welcome. Your new PR.
Bumper sticker material right there.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it's funny because I'm newsflash, Bonnie Schaefer, guess who couldn't get married in Israel? That would be you or anyone who doesn't want to use an Orthodox rabbi, which I find hilarious because this is a secular state, and you actually can't even get married with a conservative rabbi. You need an Orthodox rabbi. So you have Israeli Jews who go to like Cyprus or Rome to get married.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a place. Yeah. So it's like that. You can't even get married there. It's also, it's like Israel is also, when we talk about is it really safe to be in the streets of Tel Aviv, I mean, sure, there's just like it is safe probably to be in a certain American cities, but you still have like homophobia in Israel just like any other place.
Right.
Like last year at the Gay Pride Parade, I think it was, there was like a stabbing by like a homophobe. A homophobe went stabbing gay people and killed like a 16-year-old girl at a parade. So I mean, it's, but again, even if Israel was this perfect, like, utopia for the LGBT community, that's wonderful, but that, you can't sell it that way and then be okay with that if it's predicated on, like, occupying an entire people. Like, if that's the argument.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And of course, it was just to me, I couldn't believe how unaware she was, like how privileged and out of touch she was. But yes, as you alluded to, Rania, there was a stabbing at a Jerusalem gay pride parade by an ultra-Orthodox Jewish man. So I'm assuming that Bonnie Schaefer didn't go into any super ortho neighborhoods holding the hand of her wife, unless one of them was wearing payas and a beard. Too soon, right? But I want to play another.
I'm laughing.
Oh, good. No, thank you. But what is Zogby actually trying? What is the thing that they're trying to accomplish, by the way, vis-a-vis the Palestinian people?
So they introduced an amendment that Bernie Sanders had directly approved and actually put in things about. So the amendment was to the language in the current draft of the platform, which is not actually available, but Zogby read it out loud. But they wanted to amend the language to basically call for an end to Israel's occupation and an end to Israel's settlements, illegal settlements. Nothing really that radical. I mean, those are actually part of American policy in terms of rhetoric. I mean, maybe not in terms of actions, but in terms of rhetoric. So that's actually not anything radical. Another part was they wanted to add a sentence about calling for the rebuilding of Gaza, which the UN has estimated will be uninhabitable by 2020. So that's in 3.5 years. So they called for rebuilding Gaza, and then they also wanted to remove, interestingly enough, and this is coming from, again, Bernie Sanders approved this, they wanted to remove language in the current draft that actually expresses opposition directly to the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, as well as the UN. And it says it expresses opposition to delegitimization of Israel, and they wanted to remove the part that says at the UN or through the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. So that was a pretty big deal, which was kind of cool. And yeah, those were the. Oh, and also they wanted to take out that calling Jerusalem the undivided capital of Israel. So that's it. I mean, that's it. Those aren't that radical. It's not like they were calling for all Palestine. They weren't calling for a restoration of pre-48 Palestine. It was pretty basic stuff that's been a part of what U.S. administrations have called for since they endorsed the two-state solution. Right. So that's all. And so the opposition to it was just over dramatic. And
in fact, we can play a little bit of that opposition. We have Cindy Sherman, who says something. Wendy Sherman.
But I love that you called her Cindy.
Oh my God, yeah, she just looks like a Cindy to me. Wendy Sherman is going to talk, and then Cornel West is going to talk in this clip, and we hear them discuss the delegitimization of Israel.
If, in fact, there is a delegitimization of Israel through BDS or through the UN, this is not a good thing.
The great Rabbi Joshua Heschel used to say, indifference to evil is more evil than even it's evil itself. And it seems to me if we don't have the courage to tell the truth, the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. It is an occupation. Occupation is evil. When the IDF kills innocent people, over 500 babies in 51 days, no matter how many shields they say that Hamas uses, wrong from a moral and spiritual point of view. All we're trying to say is Democratic Party must tell the truth. We can never fully respect the Palestinians unless we can name what they're up against, the boot on their necks. I come from a people who've been hated. And they said slavery. No, you got a race problem. It's not a race problem, it's slavery. Oh, nobody got a race problem, it's Jim Crow. No, it's discrimination. It's not discrimination. It's terrorizing black people. When would America tell the truth about the boot on our necks? That's all we're saying. Occupation is evil. How do we procure the security of our precious Jewish brothers and sisters? Tell the truth about the terror coming at them, but then they occupy a people. We must tell the truth about what that structure is. It's not disputed territories. This is not a diplomatic end name. It's occupied territories. It's been said by every nation with the exception of the Democratic Party, because our presidents have said it. That's all we're calling for. Nothing radical, but the truth. And it seems to me if we can't meet that test, lo and behold, how are we going to deal with this ugly situation with precious folk on both sides?
And that, of course, was Cornel West and Wendy Sherman. Wendy Sherman is worried about the delegitimization of Israel through the UN. And maybe she's right to be worried, because just today, guys, that radical Hamas member, Jew-hating guy known as the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon of the UN, criticized the Israeli blockade of the Gaza Strip. He spoke during a visit to the region where he met with Palestinian and Israeli leaders. And he said the closure of Gaza suffocates its people, stifles its economy, and impedes reconstruction efforts. It is a collective punishment for which there must be accountability, end quote. So that is something that, is being said. And I guess to some people that statement of fact is offensive. Or I actually think that they don't deny, well, it's not good PR to say it's collective punishment. But I think that some of the people who defend the Israeli government are glad it's collective punishment. That's not like a byproduct. That's one of the goals.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. That's like a part of written policy. It's not, and the Israeli government, if anything, I got to say, I got to give a shout out to the Israeli government, because they're really our best proponents when it comes to trying to make the case for Palestinian rights, because the Israeli government is full of people at senior levels who are just like far-right proto-fascists. Is the best way I can put it. And they openly call for not just, collective punishments, probably like a dovish thing to say. Right. There's Israeli leaders who've openly called for genocide at this point. The Israeli justice minister did exactly that during the bombing of Gaza. You've got the Israeli culture minister, Miri Regev, called Africans a cancer. And then she, there was such a backlash, she apologized not to Africans, but to cancer survivors for comparing them to Africans. These are the kinds of people who are running the Israeli government at the moment. And so it's just, that's what's really hard, the disconnect. If you watch these committee hearings with Democrats, there's a lot of talk. A part of the Democratic platform that's changed is calling for the end of mass incarceration, acknowledging systemic and structural racism and opposing it. And you think acknowledging the oppression of Native Americans and wanting to do something to help and fix that. These are things that people were talking about throughout the day. And then you get to Israel, which is literally run by people who talk like Donald Trump and then worse than Donald Trump. And suddenly there's lockstep support for Israel, for this place that's run by people like Trump, from people who all day were denouncing racism. And it's just the disconnect is just it's jarring.
Yeah, it is. It's, that there's that term, progressive except on Palestine, PEP, which I think describes.
Well, I gotta say, I think that notion is changing. Someone like Bernie Sanders is an actual progressive.
Right, of course.
And just seeing, how he's moved so far, at least in his rhetoric on the issue of Palestine, and even making it a part of the platform this way, is a huge deal. And I think just demonstrates a coming death of the progressive except for Palestine. And for the Clinton people, or the people that she appointed, and the people who kind of run the DNC, I wouldn't really call them progressive on most things. So I guess it makes sense in that respect.
Sure. No, that's fair. I think that in the outside of the kind of official DNC, though, and you're right in that I would never call Debbie Wasserman Schultz Wasserman progressive, but I think there are certain people who I know personally who I agree with on lots of issues, and then Israel comes up, and all of a sudden it's the one issue that progressives and the left apparently don't get, and we're anti-Semitic or self-loathing on, as opposed to it's the one issue that people are tribalist about because it applies to their people, or their perceived people. But
Right.
I wanted to also play a little thing that Bill McKibben said, and Bill McKibben is another person who was named by Bernie Sanders, and he's, of course, a really brilliant climate scientist and author. And he makes a nice point, an interesting point about the irony or the logic of the biography, if you will, the Jewishness of Bernie Sanders.
It should be noted that Bernie Sanders is the first non-Christian American ever to win a presidential primary. The first person would have been bar mitzvahed ever to rise to anything like that level in our political life. And I think it really is remarkable that it was he who chose to tell the truth here.
So I think that's kind of a fascinating point. I love the idea of like the first person who was first bar mitzvah to really shape language in a way that recognizes the human rights of the Palestinians, happen to be a Jew. And of course, I just want to give a little shout out because most people just think of Jews as AIPAC, because AIPAC is a very powerful, well-organized lobby.
I think of Lieberman.
That's another one.
Oh, God, that's terrible.
I mean, he could be, right? Which Lieberman are we talking about? Joe Lieberman or Avigor, who's the...
and Barbara Streisand. I think about
Barbara
her,
Streisand.
too.
Okay. Well, Gabe always thinks about Barbara Streisand for various reasons.
Nonstop. You should see my room in my apartment.
It's
so many collages. Decoupaged bar stools with Streisand's face all over them.
And wall-to-wall needle points that he's done of Barbara Streisand. But there is Avigor Lieberman. He's a great guy who wants to cut off people's heads. He has that great quote.
Lieberman. Yeah.
He wants to. Yeah. You said cut off people's heads?
I believe it was something about cutting. It was to cut off heads with an axe. He said chop them off with an axe was the language that he.
What was it? It was so great. It was a beautiful moment of ISIS-Israeli solidarity. I really liked it. What was it? It was such oh wait, here we go. Here we got it. Statement towards Arab members of Knesset. He said that heads of Nazi regime along with their collaborators were executed. I hope this will be the fate of the collaborators in the Knesset. But where's the one he said about?
I didn't even know he said that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's like another. That guy, man, he's just full of one-liners, isn't he?
I know. We should make a sitcom out of him. His character.
Right?
But,
he used to be a bouncer.
Stop it.
I'm not joking, because he's from the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
He immigrated from the Soviet Union and then became a bouncer in Israel before he entered politics.
At an LGBTQ club where the dance floor is made up of Palestinian skin.
Obviously. Otherwise, how would it be environmentally friendly
Exactly.
again?
Yeah, they don't waste any resources. It's all natural. It's organic.
Keep it green.
Right.
But he does look like a bouncer, and his policies are kind of bouncer-ish. And here's the quote that we were talking about. Whoever is with us should get everything. Whoever is against us, there's nothing else to do. He's Soviet, not Soviet Union, not Israeli, but I can't. Whatever is with us should get everything. Whoever is against, there's nothing else to do. We have to lift up an axe and remove his head. Otherwise, we won't survive here. There is no reason that al-Fam will be part of Israel.
Oh my God, that accent. I'm sorry, I'm just your accent was really cool.
Thank you.
That was really good. I think it was.
Yeah, I got to work on it.
I got to say, I was teleported to Brighton Beach. I was eting pickled watermelon and listening to a sexy waitress.
Sexy, named Ivania. Ivania on 42nd Street. I thought that we could talk a little bit, because Zogby is Lebanese-American, right?
Yeah.
And a really interesting thing about the way that the media portrayed Bernie's nominations and namings to this Democratic Platform Committee is that, according to the headlines, and of course our most beloved Washington Post, Sanders wins greater stand in Democratic Platform, names pro-Palestinian activists. For the first couple of paragraphs, they don't actually mention that Keith Ellison, who you may remember, listeners, as being a member of Congress, they don't mention him. You have to go a bunch of paragraphs down before you get to any of the other people he named. But
right. And this is like the mainstream press. This isn't just Israeli.
Right.
This isn't like the Israeli American press. This is the Washington Post headline, I think, said that.
Yeah, this is the Washington Post, exactly. And we should also clarify, it's not like we're talking about the Daily News, which had probably one of the best unintentional self-parodies about Bernie Sanders being wrong on Israel. It was called Bernie Just Doesn't Get It on Israel. And I think one of the greatest quotes about it is that we should be fearful of his commitment to being even-handed.
That was funny.
Yeah.
I think I saw that one. That was almost as funny as Michael Oren, who's a former American, gave us the citizenship to become an Israeli ambassador and now is an Israeli lawmaker, accusing Bernie Sanders of a blood libel. That was my favorite.
Oh, how did he do that? Did he actually say we drink the blood of Christian babies, or imply it?
Oh no, he straight up was like Bernie Sanders, he engaged in a blood libel because when Sanders fumbled on the number, he confused the number that were killed the number of people killed in Gaza with the number of people injured, and then he in his Daily News interview, and then he immediately once he was corrected was like, oh yeah,
right,
you're right.
Right.
And that was it. And then everybody was like, oh, my God!
Yeah.
And immediately, all these Israeli lawmakers were like, blood libel. There was another Israeli lawmaker, Yair Lapid, who accused Bernie Sanders of colluding with Hamas.
We all know that he does. Let's be honest. We're friends. We can admit it.
Obviously.
Yeah. We're not a mixed company. We might as well admit it. But, yeah, the Daily News thing that I loved was Bernie Sanders fancies himself a brave truth teller by decrying Israel's response to Hamas terrorism and promising to sympathize with Palestinians should he win the White House.
God.
Literally, his bad move is promising to sympathize with Palestinians.
That's the Daily News is really. I'm pretty sure that the Daily News is they literally came out hard for Hillary Clinton. I'm pretty sure that they're the ones that he had the interview with when they made a huge deal about it, where they grilled him, and then you watched the interview, you saw the interview with Clinton where they asked her one hard question, and I'm pretty sure it was Juan Gonzalez from Democracy Now! Who asked it.
Earlier this week, the former Secretary of State publicly defended her role in the 2009 coup in Honduras when the military seized democratically elected President Manuel Zelaya in the middle of the night, deposed him, and sent him into exile. Since the coup, Honduras has become one of the most violent places in the world. Clinton was asked about Honduras during a meeting with the New York Daily News editorial board on Saturday. The question was posed by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez.
Secretary Clinton, I'd like to ask you, if I can, about Latin America.
Yes, Juan.
And the policy specifically that you were directly involved in, the coup in Honduras. As you know, in 2009, the military overthrew President Zelaya. There was a period there where the OAS was trying to isolate that regime. But apparently some of the emails that have come out as a result of State Department releases show that some of your top aides were urging you to declare the military coup, cut off U.S. aid. You didn't do that. You ended up negotiating with Oscar Arias a deal for new elections. But the situation in Honduras has continued to deteriorate. There's been 300 people killed by government forces. All these children fleeing and mothers from Honduras over the border into the United States. And just a few weeks ago, one of the leading environmental activists, Berta Cáceres, was assassinated in her home. Do you have any concerns about the role that you played in that particular situation, even not necessarily being in agreement with your top aides in the State Department?
Well, let me again try to put this in context. The national legislature in Honduras and the national judiciary actually followed the law in removing President Zelaya. Now, I didn't like the way it looked or the way they did it, but they had a very strong argument that they had followed the Constitution and the legal precedents. And as you know, they really undercut their argument by spiriting him out of the country in his pajamas, where they sent, the military to, take him out of his bed and get him out of the country. So this began as a very mixed and difficult situation. If the United States government declares a coup, you immediately have to shut off all aid, including humanitarian aid, the Agency for International Development Aid, the support that we were providing at that time for a lot of very poor people. And that triggers a legal necessity. There's no way to get around it. So our assessment was we will just make the situation worse by punishing the Honduran people if we declare a coup and we immediately have to stop all aid for the people but we should slow walk and try to stop anything that the government could take advantage of without calling it a coup. So you're right. I worked very hard with leaders in the region and got Oscar Arias, the Nobel Prize winner, to take the lead on trying to broker a resolution without bloodshed. And that was very important to us, that, Zelaya had friends and allies, not just in Honduras, but in some of the neighboring countries like Nicaragua, and that we could have had a terrible civil war that would have been just terrifying in its loss of life.
Juan later wrote about the exchange in a column for the Daily News titled "Clinton's Policy Was a Latin American Crime Story."
She basically lied and said that it was not a military coup, it was just a non-military coup, and she got nothing for that. I mean, absolutely nothing. We have to have Greg Grandin back on. No
big
follow-up.
articles.
No, and the fact that
she not only did she say the Honduran military coup was okay, she totally denied responsibility for the violence that killed Berta Cáceres.
Oh yeah, nothing
she
of
just
that. Yeah. And Berta Cáceres named her specifically as someone who was responsible for it.
Did she write down on a piece of paper, if I end up dead,
know
that Hillary Clinton is the one that did it?
She gave an interview, on video.
Yeah. In 2014, the Honduran environmental activist Berta Cáceres spoke about Hillary Clinton's role in the 2009 coup. This is the woman who was assassinated last week in La Esperanza, Honduras. But she spoke about Hillary Clinton's role in the 2009 coup with the Argentine TV program Resumen Latinoamericano.
We're coming out of a coup that we can't put behind us. We can't reverse it. It just kept going. And after, there was the issue of the elections. The same Hillary Clinton, in her book Hard Choices, practically said what was going to happen in Honduras. This demonstrates the meddling of North Americans in our country. The return of the president, Mel Zelaya, became a secondary issue. There were going to be elections in Honduras. And he or she, Clinton, recognized that they didn't permit Mel Zelaya's return to the presidency. There were going to be elections. And the international community, officials, the government, the grand majority accepted this, even though we warned this was going to be very dangerous and that it would permit a barbarity, not only in Honduras, but in the rest of the continent. And we've been witnesses to this.
Rania, you unwittingly have become kind of the stage mother of your niece, who is a very outspoken critic of Hillary Clinton. Tell us a little bit about your 9-year-old niece, Eva, who I wrote about at Raw Story, by the way, so you can read up on her more. But
she was thrilled. She was like, "Oh my God, I'm famous!"
Oh my God, that's so great. Well, we got
It was really funny.
It's the Katie Halper Show is all about breaking young talent, making new child stars. The world doesn't have enough child stars. It always turns out well for them.
Yeah,
so,
it does. JonBenet Ramsey.
Right.
That's what we're advocating.
Oh,
Sorry.
God.
Oh,
Oh,
that
God.
was terrible.
Okay, this is getting really dark.
I know, too dark. No, but Eva's not going to, don't worry, Eva's raised by great people. None of that.
It's not going to go to their heads that she's going viral now?
No.
I have 3 sisters, and they all, 2 of them have kids, so...
Right.
Yeah, we're this big Lebanese-American family, you could say. My parents came here, they immigrated here just as the Civil War in Lebanon got started in the 70s. I have a lot of nephews and nieces, and for some reason, she's just, really into this stuff.
Right.
Because she saw a debate between Bernie and Hillary.
And this is Rania's niece pretending to be Hillary Clinton debating Bernie.
Now, back to the Democratic debates.
Like I was saying, he's gonna destroy Israel. How? Well, you're being nice to Palestinians.
Being nice to Palestinians and treating them like human beings doesn't mean I'm anti-Israel.
What's your tone, man?
How about Wall Street donations?
The only reason I'm taking money from Wall Street is because 9/11 happened there.
9/11 is bad. What did that do right?
Do you dare question my leadership?
I just did.
About immigration. Children immigrants are just walking around and we have to kick them out. There's so many problems. We had to destroy Honduras because I get money. We had to destroy Libya because I get money. Children are just coming along, pitter-pattering against my property, coming from wars and saying, I want to live here. They do not have the right to live in my country. All of you immigrant children should leave. All of you super predators We'll be back. Go to commercials.
Thank you so much, Rania. Rania Khalek, you can find her at Rania Khalek on Twitter. We want to have you back on. We want to have Eva on.
Yeah, great to be on with you.
Thanks for coming. Bye.
Bye.